Good afternoon. Today I wanted to drill further into this idea of whether the Catholic Church truly is one, whether the Catholic Church meets that mark or fulfills that mark that will help us to identify the true church, the church founded by Jesus Christ. The reason that I wanted to focus on this more is that there are some challenges that may immediately arise if someone says, well, the Catholic Church is one. Some of the challenges may fall under the realm of the fact that in terms of its governance, there are splits in the church. Perhaps the biggest one that anybody who's studied history knows of is the Great Western Schism between the Church of the West and the Church of the East, the Church of Rome and the Orthodox Church. The date associated with that is 1049 AD. And here I wanted to note that the Catholic Church acknowledges this split. And in an encyclical, Pope St. John Paul the Great actually wrote that he considers the East and the West to be two lungs of the church that should breathe in unison. And he laments the fact that in governance, at least, there is this split between East and West. What's interesting about JP2's document and the church's understanding of the East, however, is that we acknowledge that the East, that is the Orthodox Church, is part of the true Catholic Church. So we have a denial, perhaps, of the Pope's supremacy in terms of the governance of the church. But in terms of doctrine, the East and the West are in unison. We may have different ways of describing church teaching, but the Church of the East, we recognize the validity of their bishops. We recognize the validity of their sacraments. They are part of the church. It's just that that unity, although it's there, is wounded. So there is, in fact, division within Christ's church, but it has to do with our fallen human nature and the fact that we have very real disagreements in terms of governance. But that unity of doctrine is still there. The other objections could fall under the grounds of whether there has really been a unity in teaching in the tradition and what has been handed down. And some people will point to instances where they say, in fact, that the Catholic Church, and in particular, her head, the Pope, has taught heresy. I just wanted to talk about a couple examples of that. One example that's often given is a Pope of the 7th century by the name of Honorius, who is accused of denying that Christ had a human will. He was Pope during the time of the Monothelite heresy, and this is what that heresy was about. Well, actually, when you study that, it's not quite that simplistic, because what happened was that the Pope was given a letter from another patriarch of the church, which gave a toned down version of the heresy, which was borderline acceptable. And Pope Honorius's positive response to that, which was in order to make peace in terms of governance, ended up being weaponized and used against him by the Monothelites, who said, look, the Pope agrees with our teaching. So there's kind of a weaponization, politicization of something that the Pope was doing in order to bring peace. And it was not an outright denial of the church's teaching that Christ, in fact, has a divine will and a human will, because he has a divine nature and a human nature. So this isn't a very good example of heresy, and it is perhaps one of the most dramatic. Another one that comes up is in the 14th century. There was a pope by the name of John the 22nd, who in his old age gave some homilies in which he put forward some strange ideas regarding the beatific vision. And when he was challenged on this, immediately he retracted what he had said in these homilies. What's interesting to me is that these two examples I gave are probably the most dramatic instances in the entire 2,000-year history of the church, where it seems that a pope almost came borderline near to teaching heresy. That's pretty remarkable in 2,000 years that despite all the human imperfections of the Pope, by and large, there has been a preservation of the Church from error. That must say something about the Catholic Church and its claim to possess the mark of oneness. That's it for today. God bless.